Angelique, it's really great to be able to chat with you today. As I was saying to you in the emails and the text messages, House of Attention has been moving from its inception away from responsive agency work, looking towards the audience to drive the conversation from the place of the passion and the reason why they were gathering. And we had been doing this in ephemeral means for a long time through our food and wine festivals and through interactive digital experiences that we own, program, curated the content for. But we were always doing responsive agency work as part of our kind of like operating system until recently when we decided to really shift the focus on being fully proactive in building experiences and using our ability to bring culture and gather people into these places where we can start telling the permanent story today in the ephemeral ways that maybe you're used to me kind of being in a creative in. I reached out to you because this idea of intentional luxury, intentional placemaking really aligns with your ability to cut the world up into pleasures and your structure around that conversation. So I would love to figure out where hospitality and human sensuality and emotion driven decision making kind of start coming together, because I personally believe, and I think there's some trends here that like as we get wealthier, we want to be more intentional. And, it's not about sitting in a spa that's beautiful in a pool that's designed by a famous bird. It's like, what am I doing? How am I living? What's my adventure? How am I actually being elegantly uncomfortable in a way that makes me grow? And if that's me as an individual, great. If it's me as the head of a brand, it's a similar conversation. It's not too disservice. So thanks for letting me put that in here because we haven't chatted in a while. I would love to hear where you are coming from and where your focus has been. And then we can dive into this stuff if that's okay.
When you first came across the pleasure codes, you saw the birthing of maybe it was a framework, maybe it was a methodology, it was this kind of thing that came into being, and it really grew out of the pandemic when I was doing some futurist work of saying, what's the big reset actually going on here? Because you don't get a chance that often to deal with the convergence of so many things happening at one time. And at that time, we worked with some cultural semioticians around the world, some cultural anthropologists. I got to geek out with some proper 20-year out futurists. And this body of work that we started to look at was around this big reset of those that took an opportunity in the pandemic to, drink as much wine as possible and then discover, wow, this is really fun, and I don't remember the first half of the pandemic, to now I'm going to start working out. Now I'm going to start experimenting with these things. And through that work and looking at different patterns across the world, came up with the initial framework, the pleasure codes, which is all the things that we do from releasing ourselves into hedonistic pleasures to the genuine social connection of the oxytocin that gets exchanged when two people come into contact with each other and bond over commonality, all of the spectrum of all of those things. So, yeah.
As somebody with ADHD, knowing that even dopamine on a regular basis is important to drive focus for myself, to accomplish tasks, to interact with team members, and creating that kind of interactivity, it seems like a novel thing, but understanding large scale, as you said, hedonistic pleasures and the tiny pleasures of success metrics that you can feel so that you can personally have wins that are building towards the middle of your day, towards the big presentation. These are not trivial things. This is really kind of, for me, when people say, what do you do? Or people talk about magic, right? Like, this is the creative magic. It's like appreciating all of that pleasure that we do have. Some people call it a flow state, you know what I mean? But like, I love the way that you chop it up into those different sizes and those different energies. Forgive me for interrupting, because it was for me with the ADHD, that was what it really clicked on for me. It was like, oh, I'm allowed to enjoy these things that I normally would just be like, nope, you should be ashamed. Do more. I thank you for letting me just say that, because like it was a mind blower, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because what I've been doing since the methodology got birthed is really going back and tracing the philosophies from the Greeks all the way through to Nietzsche, to when did it become something we needed to be guilty of, a little bit of hedonism, or when does self-optimization become too much, and who are the multiple selves? I call it multiple personality order. We're giving yourself permission to be and explore all of those things that make us feel alive is, to me, the exciting part. And what I hope to do is develop a way of thinking and a vocabulary. And that's the intention, right?
Yeah, 100%. And what So we're bordering on a couple different conversations here, but one of the things that I find as this through line of intention in psychedelic wellness, the idea of the holistic journey. And I would say I got the language that I'm using from a group called Beckley Retreats. The guy who organized that is named Neil. He worked with a woman, I can't remember her name, who is a 40-year seminal expert on psychedelics based in the Netherlands and Jamaica, the US. She spoke a lot. Again, I don't mean to do a disservice, but their methodology was so good from understanding that before you make this decision, you need to be able to be in a certain place of awareness so that these decisions that you make after this are all accretive to your goal, whether that be calm, happiness, presence, whatever it is. But they also recognize that as hospitality providers, as experience designers, they had to introduce you to everybody on the team. So you felt comfortable when you were in a vulnerable state saying like, oh, I know all of these faces. I am in a safe cocoon, right? The energy. Did you meditate today? Did you journal yet? Are you focusing on why you're doing this? Great. Please check in with yourselves, sending reminders. If Disney did a third of what Beckley Retreats did for its guests before and after, the money that I spent on my family I would have felt the hedonism so much better because I would have been prepped for it. I would have been excited. I would have understood it. And I think that there's a missing there is like letting people really enjoy the process instead of just pampering them, if that makes sense. And the knowledge lets the pleasure start sooner because when you're activating, the future, you're imagining and all that kind of stuff is almost identical to actually being in the moment, which I find is really unique as well.
I think you just cracked something there. The mystery to unlocking why Disney adults have become so fanatical is they probably have the pre-post integration of the experience, the
100%
living of it. It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, a lot of what I imagine we are doing as a hospitality group is taking passionate audiences, bringing them together in moments, and then trying to figure out which of those things have to become rituals, which of those rituals have to become permanent so that we can build facilities to house them. And sometimes it looks like a coffee shop, and sometimes it looks like, a field in the middle of the desert that you have a concert in once a year. That range, though, of passionate audiences gathering. And, again, I like to add a little magic in there. So I would love to hear some thoughts about you from your headspace about how your world is filtered through hospitality, if that's okay. And then maybe we can have some kind of other fun conversations past that. So in your own words, what do you do and how do you define your personal relationship with experience design or hospitality?
My name is Angelique Green, and I am the founder of The Mighty Shed. We do brand innovation in a nutshell, helping brands think about the different futures possible that are emerging that they could potentially capture new value that genuinely consumers would love and fall in love with and want to be a part of. And so for me, when I think about the hospitality and the experience design that can come from all that's exciting about the future, one of the biggest paradoxes of our time, I think, is that we've never been more connected, yet we've never felt more alone. And so when you look to those fringe experiences like the social sauna at a rave, to me, okay, that could be a one-off, but that could actually be quite timeless because you think about the history of saunas going back and ice bathing next to it and the more than and self-optimization ritual where I'm locked away in an infrared sauna on my own. I'm actually exchanging ideas like the Native Americans would have done in their smoking hunts, exchanging ideas, transforming the experience and bonding with real humans. To me, I think things like that are rich, untapped opportunities that go way beyond the ephemeral one-offs.
And when you think about the brand journey at the Mighty Shed, a lot of what I've encountered with you is your ability to take a brand team, a group of creative people or producers, operators, and be able to immerse them in culture, a city, a location, a passionate audience, so to speak. When we talk about experience design from my perspective, and I think you're one of the teams that really thinks about it, a lot of people get trapped in CX as some sort of website thing that's important for ad capture and all that noise. I think when you talk about experience design, and I would love to hear your thoughts of this, I do believe it really exists before somebody decides to commit their energy into this brand. And then you think about the touch points. And again, if you could just explain that again so that we can separate where your creativity comes from the very more narrow, specific version of CX, which is how do we get people to flow through a digital funnel into a choice process? Does that make, because like,
Yeah.
I know we use this language and I know it means a lot more in your world than I think it might in other people's ears, if that makes sense.
It's interesting because I think, when so much of the language that gets used in marketing has a great human truth behind it, but through the buzzwords, we actually lose what the meaning is about, right? And what
100%.
the first thing that came to mind when you said that is the zero moment of truth. So, I've not encountered your brand yet. I'm at
Yeah.
moment zero. And moment zero, whether it's like hearing about Alinea, the restaurant, before you even walk in the door, somebody says, "You wouldn't believe it, I ate a balloon." Like a balloon, you ate
And
it.
smoke.
Like,
I,
and there was smoke, and well, what happened to the plastic? And it's like your imagination starts going off in all of these directions, and you don't even understand it yet, but somehow you were teased and you were excited. And I think the art of the tease, if you think about P.T. Barnum and what he would do to tease the spectacle before you even walk into the tent or walk into the
yep.
museum, it's that theater, the spectacular theater that doesn't have to be spectacle, but it is enticing enough that it captures your imagination and you don't even know what it is yet. And you don't need to know exactly what it is yet. But every single little zero moment of truth, there's probably multiple to any given experience, right? I'm
Hmm.
heading to Dubai and I'm going to go to the Jumeirah resort and I got this fantastic invite and there was the tease that was with it. It was like, what do you mean? I have a butler, and well, what's the butler going to do for me? Right? It's those little zero moments of truth that lead up, and I think they do, to borrow your word, they become accretive to almost
Yeah.
setting me up and priming for the fact that I'm going to be amazed, but I don't even know exactly what I'm going to be amazed by yet.
And I think that word accretive, I hear it a lot in the venture and financing circles that we talk with. But I think from a humanistic perspective, a lot of the things that we imagine are very clearly defined KPIs from a marketing or brand awareness perspective are really these accretive moments of consistent delivery, of performance, of execution, of saying you're going to do something and doing it. But then if we talk about that as the foundation, how do you step beyond that foundation and start delivering things specifically for passionate audiences? How do you start moving them into the place where, oh, I should choose you over this other version because we more align in this other thing? That's the moment we're living in right now, right? Brands really being able to say, look at us do this thing all the time that you need us to do, but also we're choosing you and you should choose us because we're not trying to be for everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
how do you see that process moving over the next couple of years? This idea that the creators, the brands, the IP engines can start choosing their audiences and how they invest their energies.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. As you were talking through that, it struck a thought for me, and I can't remember who said it first, but it was something around the idea that brands are like straws and bits. The straws and bits that birds put together to make the nest, right? And I
Hmm.
think to your point, I see that the opportunity to become truly entertainment brands exists for everybody, especially those that aren't even in entertainment. But
100%.
thinking about, right, in a world where attention is scarce, everybody's fighting for it. If you're not entertaining me, and entertainment can mean a story that moves me, makes me cry, makes me
Yeah.
laugh, makes me face my
Ed-
truths, right?
Educates me. You know what I mean? Any of these
Educate me,
things.
all of the stories. And I think that those brands that will really win the day and provide real value for their consumers are the ones that know how to put together those bits of straw into
Yep.
the infinite nest that then becomes fantastical and like a world that you can step into and escape temporarily or for longer periods of time.
And Angelique, what we just talked about is how we define the house of attention. In short, house of attention, it's as a modus like of thinking, right? As a mode of thinking or as like a operating system. There's two ways we can communicate, marketing or entertainment. Marketing asks for you to like listen to me talk about something so you can get entertainment afterwards. Let me tell you what I want to tell you first, and then I'll let you be entertained, right? And then entertainment says, listen, I have no agenda here other than doing the thing we both care about and providing you value first. I might eventually ask you to participate more of your attention with me. And the way that we do that is through media, experiences, and artifacts. Media is infinitely scalable, infinitely portable. It's how we become aware of things, right? We care about whether it's football, knitting, a political party. That thing should educate us to then want to go become part of a community, right? That's what the House of Attention is holding, a community of passionate, like-minded people who share the desire to make artifacts and experiences together so that they can go on and create more feedback loops of like, this was us together, making media, having experiences, living our passion. That to me is the choice brands can make right now. And it's the choice almost any communicator can make, whether it is B2B business sales or, Nike trying to communicate globally their thing. How am I entertaining you first and foremost so that my product, my service becomes part of an enjoyable ecosystem that you find value with immediately?
I love that. I think it's so interesting. And one of the biggest challenges I see, I'm curious to know how you deal with this, is the stories that we tell ourselves that are possible within the businesses that we serve. Meaning, what are the metrics? What are the KPIs? Yes, that's important. And you need to think about that. But what you need to think about is story, and the universal story and the marvelous story before you even get to that. And by that, I mean, look at the Marvel universes.
100%.
How do they do what they do? It is an IP franchise 10x beyond the imagination of what anybody ever thought it could be. There's a very solid business model underneath it, but it's not successful because of the business model. It's successful because of the story and the way that the layers of story work upon each other.
I find that as a hospitality group, we actually function more like a record label because we have a bunch of creative directors that basically come together for projects, right? And that kind of looks like a bunch of artists that form bands that put out albums. And sometimes those bands stay together for whole careers. And you have a creative team that runs a hotel group, a restaurant group. When they open up 15 or 20 of the same kind of concept. Jean Georges is fantastic at this. He's got this great team. They're all over the world. There's hotel brands that do this flawlessly. Aman is one of them, right? It's a tight team. They know how to open up their properties, know how to do their thing. Disney is the same way, right? We can talk about it in all sorts of different spaces, but how do you move that forward? Like, where does it go from that process of human interactivity like into the next stage, and how does the guest experience really become valuable in these conversations? I think that to me is where your methodology of thinking about them while you're building, thinking about the user experience and how they're going to enjoy it, which is not a weird thing to say out loud. How am I creating pleasure from my guests, from check-in to spa to the text messages they get ahead of time? If each one of those touch points is entertaining and valuable and starts to create the mental flexibility to be open to making memories, we're winning, right? Our brands are winning, we're winning. I would love to hear where you think the future of that is going and how that basket either is founded in communication or like, how do you think about this? Is it a comms thing? Is it a presence thing? Is it, is it a branding exercise? Is it a
The simple answer is yes, it's all of the above. But I think that the starting point is knowing what your ultimate ambition is and how many different types of pleasure can you activate it, meaning what are the specific codes that your brand universe is going to stand for? Job one. What's your pleasure DNA? And so you might have 6 different mission critical pleasure codes that are based upon what you believe your future and current audience are going to want and crave and don't even know they want and crave yet. But there also can be timeless, and you can create infinite stories out of them, because what you don't want is a Frankenstein, right? You want something that makes good, coherent sense. But so much of the conversation that I see it dismisses pleasure from the outright and says, well, our brand is about unexpected surprises with a twist. Okay, but that's a repeatable formula, and nobody's going to be surprised because you just said it in that way. Specifically, in moments of intimacy, we want oxytocin. Specifically, in moments of intimacy, we want serotonin. Specifically, in moments of exhilaration, we want adrenaline and some testosterone,
and dopamine and all these things,
right? All of the things. And therefore, you make it more difficult to imitate you because you have a unique mix. You've been able to put more colors on your palette so that you are then ahead of the competition and ahead of consumers' expectations. And you have something with the richness and levels levels and the layers and to build the story around. If you think about any movie in the Marvel universe or you think about any Disney movie, they hit on different notes.
Yep.
It's not one story, it's multiple. And I think that that idea of having multiple personality order, that we wrestle with multiple forms of pleasure because they're the timeless itches. And people are looking for them to be scratched. The brands that figure out how to do that are the brands that really become legacy building brands.
And I think what you said in there, the multiple layers of pleasure inside these things. Marvel's very good at telling a story that some people find it's a bit vanilla, but is designed for the zero user, right? That you called them, right? Somebody who's never really watched a Marvel movie before, never really interacted with the characters, don't have any buy-in, don't care, don't know where they're going, don't know where they've been, right? As you get farther into those layers, you get more nuance, more detail. The risk value reward becomes much higher, and every single one of the, oh, did they make the costume look like it was from the 80s or from the 90s? Was it all of those things? Though, as you start to fall in, each one of those intentional decisions creates a whole impact of positives and negatives for people who are deeper and deeper into that community. What I like about that is it is a consistent reiteration of the idea that, love and hate aren't opposites, it's indifference, right? And if you're a zero user and you don't know anything about the different outfits, you're going to be indifferent that they picked the yellow costume instead of the blue one. That's not, you won't care. But as you get farther down, those things become more and more important. And that means that there is a bigger and bigger chance for neuroflexibility and for impact of what those decisions were. And for somebody to be like, no, we made it blue, so it sucks for you, you don't like it. But the decision was because of get on board or don't get on board. You know what I mean? Again, if you love the thing, you can be like, that sucks. All right, but I have a reason. I have a
Yes.
reason now.
And
And
there is a
like,
story behind it. And if you look at, Easter eggs have been around in internet culture for a long, long time. Nobody capitalizes on them better than Taylor Swift. But and
100%, she's
Marvel Universe
fantastic.
does the same. Is that you protect and plant your Easter eggs very carefully, and over time those even grow because then your loyalists always have that hidden experience that's like just for them, the exclusivity, but it's not about the price and the exclusivity. It's about I understood what that meant,
Yep.
and that meant something even more to me.
Angelique, I really appreciate catching up with you. Thank you so much for this conversation around the future of hospitality and the codes of pleasure that we should be thinking about when we gather people so that we can really impact them and have them feel that pleasure deeply because of the spaces and the time that we curate.
So happy to be here. Great to see you.
Thank you.